Good morning, frothers, and welcome back to another brew day at Wheatlow Brewery. Now, today it's a Sunday morning. It's shamefully late to start brewing, but this is due to some overtraining at the Hop Edition podcast after party last night. And nevertheless, we are brewing, and I had the foresight to prepare the ingredients last night, weighed the water salts out, got all the malts weighed out and ready. So all I had to do really is just stick it in and mash it. So that's already underway. So now I can talk a little bit about this beer. Now then, it's Resurrection Day, not only for me after not feeling very tippy-toppy this morning, but also for the beer that we're brewing, which is called Ward's Best Bitter. Now, Ward's Best Bitter is a extinct, or so I thought, I'll come to that later, beer from Sheffield in Yorkshire. I've got many fond memories of drinking copious amounts of this sort of 4%-ish Yorkshire Bitter in Sheffield when Ros was at university there. I'd go up, visit, and we'd drink, or we'd try and prevent a lot of this Ward's from going out of date by drinking it. And it's a typical Yorkshire Bitter, really. It's a lovely pale chestnut colour with a creamy head and easy to drink, and 4%-ish, and really just delicious. Now then, unfortunately, in 1999, the brewery closed down. It was a big sort of, I suppose you'd call it a regional brewery, right in the centre of Sheffield on the Ecclesall Road, called the Sheaf Brewery, and many people, of course, employed there. In 1972, the brewery was bought by Vaux, which is a brewery from Sunderland, I think, area. They developed interest in other areas, such as hotels, I think, and eventually decided to stop brewing, shut the brewery, sell it off for development. It's not an unfamiliar story, of course, unfortunately. It's happened to a lot of lovely little regional breweries and towns and cities across the UK, and this one fell victim in 1999. And I thought the beer had disappeared. I've never seen it since. But what I have discovered as part of my research for this video is that the brand was actually rescued by a former employee at Ward's called Mark Anderson, who founded the Maxim Brewery in the northeast, and also rescued several other brands from Vaux as well. So the beer still exists. He brews it occasionally, it's not permanently available, but nevertheless it exists. So it's great news that you can still get it. But what I want to do today is recreate this beer that I've got such a fond memory of from, it's quite a long time ago now, isn't it, 1999. So I've got Hit the Books, and this is a useful book from the mid-90s. There's a few versions of it. The Real Ale Almanac by Roger Protz, and he describes beers, or tries to list every beer, describes them, and if he can, he lists the ingredients. So this is quite a gold dust for brewers dipping into the archives to try and find out how to resurrect a beer. Now, Ward's Best Bitter, original gravity 1038, ABV 4%. Ingredients: halcyon and pipkin pale malts, crystal malt, enzymatic malt, torrefied wheat, and invert sugar at 10%. So, and then he says 23 units of colour, challenger and target hops for bitterness, fuggles and progress for aroma, 25 units of bitterness. So in that short bit of information, there is enough information in there really to make a beer. Because you've got the original gravity, you need to know that. You've got the percentages of the malts, in terms of 10% sugar, 90% all the rest. And then you've got the units of colour, so you can judge how much of the crystal malt to put in, and the units of bitterness, so you can work out the hops. This is quite exciting because I think we've got a reasonable chance of recreating this beer. Now, what does he say about the taste? Pronounced malt aroma with creamy, nutty nose from the crystal. Full malt in the mouth, rounded bittersweet finish, and then he says it's distinctive malty ale, cleansing, not cloying. Now, if you look on the internet for other memories of Wards, people will tell you that it had a sulphury smell often, sometimes known as the Burton Snatch, because Burton breweries often had that sulphury aroma due to the high mineral content, particularly sulfates from the gypsum in the well water under Burton. And so this is this divided drinkers, of course, the sulphury smell, as it does with don't seem to get it encounter it as much now. I think brewers have generally tried to reduce that sulphury smell because it does divide drinkers. But I remember back in the day, Pedigree would be another beer, and Bass longer ago as well, but Pedigree in particular would be a beer that often had the Burton Snatch and the sulphuriness, and some people don't like it. They see it as a bad thing. Others like it because it's just unique to these sort of Burton beers. This has led me on a thought process about the water profile. So Yorkshire water is generally quite soft. For the landlord water, for example, we kept it quite soft and had a higher chlorides to sulfate ratio. But what we're going to do with this, because of the anecdotal evidence about the sulphuriness, and some people say it drank minerally as well, I'm going to Burtonise this water. So I'm going to use the exact water profile that I've used for Bass. It's just a full Burton water profile, heavy on the minerals, lots and lots of sulfates, lots of gypsum, and some Epsom salts as well. And that's what we're going to go for. So that should give us, it isn't a heavily hop beer, but it should enable the hops to shine. It should help us to get a lovely clear beer, should help us get a bit of minerality into the beer. And also, will we get the Burton Snatch? I don't know. And that leads me nicely onto the yeast, because we don't just need the minerals, the sulfates for the Burton Snatch, but we do also need a yeast that's going to help you with it. If you've ever brewed lager, a lot of lager yeasts give off sulphury aromas whilst they're fermenting, but they sort of clean themselves up. So the yeast that I was looking for, I wanted it to be a Yorkshire type yeast, and I also wanted it to be one that mentions sulphuriness to be one of the properties. And I've found such a yeast. In fact, I can't just remember where I've read it, but I'm sure that I've read somewhere that this Yorkshire strain from Brew Labs could well be the yeast that was used at Wards at one point. But even if it isn't, it's a Yorkshire yeast, and in the description it mentions sulphur, light sulphur aromas. So it could be perfect. It's only available as a, what do you call this, a slope, is it? Or a slant? It's basically a tiny a tiny bit of yeast on this, I think you call it agar, don't you, in the bottom of the slope. So what we've had to do with that a few days ago is make a little starter with 300 ml of malt extract, and we've worked that up, and we've now stepped it up into a 2 litre starter, and that's bubbling away nicely behind me. So I think we've got everything in place to get this beer nice. So, in terms of the recipe, I did reach out to Mark Anderson at Maxim Brewery, hoping that he would be delighted to share his recipe with a over-enthusiastic home brewer, and he very kindly replied, and he said that the recipe that I've sort of come up with is along the right lines, but he didn't say much more than that. So the one thing, I think I'm reasonably confident in the recipe that we've worked up, but the one thing that I was slightly unsure about is whether to do a little dry hop. Now, normally these days when brewers, as brewers, we talk about dry hop, what we normally mean is that when the beer's in a uni tank, we stick a load of T90 hop pellets in there, sometimes an absolute load, and depending on what kind of beer it is, and we get a lot of flavour from the hops by dry hopping. But in English bitters, this still isn't very common. The one we did from Rural did have a reasonable dry hop, but I would class that as a more modern way of doing it. These traditional breweries, and this ward's dated back to 1837, I think it was founded, they don't tend to use dry hops in that way. They would, of course, have been open fermentation, probably in possibly Yorkshire squares, I don't know, but certainly large open vats. And so they don't tend to, a lot of traditional English bitters don't have a dry hop, or if they do, it's done differently. And the way that it's done differently would be that you would get a handful of leaf hops and you would put them in the cask when you're casking them, and allow the dry hop to work in quite a small amount in the cask. And that would have done two things. It would have enhanced the flavour, but it also would have just helped keep the beer fresh, because the hops have got that sort of preservative quality to them. So I think I'm going to try and dry hop this beer with a little bit of Fuggles in the cask in leaf format. Now, there's some information floating about on when you research wards that mentions the word demerara and priming and slow secondary fermentation with a dry hop, and phrases to that effect. So I was hoping I'd garner the exact secret from Mark Anderson at Maxim, but I'm going to have to sort of take a stab at this. So I'm thinking along the lines of sticking a handful of hops into a cask with the beer for secondary fermentation, and possibly just priming it, although I don't normally prime casks, priming it with a bit of demerara sugar. Possibly I'll do some with and some without, just in case it's a stupid idea. But that could be interesting, and it'll give us a little experiment to taste with and without that technique as well. So the mash is underway. It's progressing nicely. Going to give it an hour at 66 degrees today, and then we can carry on with the brew day. So I'll go and get my hops ready, and we'll catch up in a minute. And so the recipe is 69.4% Maris Otter I've gone for, rather than Halcyon, because I've got it in stock, and some sources do suggest Maris Otter as well. Torrefied wheat 9.7%, that's important for the beautiful creamy head on the Yorkshire Bitter. And then 11.6% Crystal 240 for the colour. That's 90 Lavibond, if you're not familiar with the EBC scale. And if you're sharp, you will have realised that doesn't add up to 100%. So we're also adding some dextrose, i.e. sugar, 2 kilos, which is 9.3%. It's not uncommon for beers like this to have a sugar element to them, and possibly these would have been liquid sugars, possibly a little bit of colour to them as well. So sort of another reason why perhaps we should just try that demerara sugar as well, because you're not going to get any colour from just white sugar. And then for the hops, we're going to do Challenger and Target for the bittering hops 15.6 IBUs of Challenger, boil for 60 minutes, 13.6 of Target, and then we're going to put aroma hops in at the last 10 minutes. Fuggles 1.7 IBUs and Progress 1.3 IBUs, and then we'll stick probably, I would say 10 grams per pin per 20 litres of, say, half a gram a litre. It's not a great big dry hop, but it's just putting some leaves of Fuggles into the cask. So moderate fermentation speed, high mineral worts preferred, moderate ester and moderate sulphur ability, medium flocculation. So I just need to see if this is cooled enough. I've just boiled some dried malt extract at a ratio of 10:1 with some water. Still a little bit warm. And then all I'm going to do is pour some in here. This is isopropyl alcohol, so make sure it's really sanitized on the outside. Okay, that's good. And then all we need to do is pour a little bit in here, about half the volume, so that there's room to shake it up. And this should loosen the yeast off the agar, which is the brown stuff in there, is the sort of agar that the yeast, I think it's called agar, that the yeast grows on. And we'll just leave that for a couple of days to get going, and then we'll step it up. Right, the first little starter has gone mad, look, and it's gone all into the airlock and everything. So what I'm going to do now is work that up into a bigger one, 2 litre one. I've got my dried malt extract in here. I'm going to add 2 litres of water, boil it to sterilise it. I'll add some yeast nutrient as well, cool it, and then we'll put the little jar flask in there and work it up to a bigger start. Just mashing in, and I've got the water salts here, and as you can see, that is a massive load of minerals. The other thing is people say that it would be, how should we put it, that when they drank a lot of Ward's Bitter, it might affect Mr. Tumnus, and this is something that's raised a little bit with Bass. People that drink Bass say, I think the politest phrase I've heard used is that it'll always get you up in the morning, meaning that it had certain laxative qualities. Now, I'm no expert on this, but I think that could be possibly to do with there being a lot of minerals. So taking all that together, I think that we want to use a Burton water profile. So this is the exact profile that we used with Bass. I'll put it on the screen here now for you to look at, but it's not for the faint-hearted. Massive load of minerals, and that's just a reflection of how the natural water was under Burton. Now Sheffield water, which is where Ward's is from, Sheffield water is naturally quite soft. It's not Burton water, but did the breweries Burtonise the water? It's not far up the road. It's likely to have received some influence from the area. Who knows? So I'm going to try it like this, and it's successful, of course, in the Bass recipe. It's not all that dissimilar a beer. It's got crystal malt in it. It's roughly the same level of hopping and colour. So if it works in Bass, it should work in this. So I'm going to stick these in now and Burtonise this mash. Right, pH is 5.6. So I've got 34 ml of lactic acid, which I'm going to add in now. Right, last 10 minutes of the boil. Got the proto-flock to add and the last few hops. Right, we're just transferring the Ward's Best Bitter into through the heat exchanger, coming out at 19.5 degrees at the moment, which is ideal, and it's beautifully clear as well, which is great. Alright, look at my yeast starter. Now that looks like it's started alright, doesn't it? Looks nice and healthy, so hopefully that will get going nice and quickly. Now we had a good efficiency. Fermenter is pretty full. It's probably full up to about there, so we might have some trouble with this going mad, because I've noticed the yeast's a bit frothy as well. Right, this is my Ward's Yorkshire Bitter. Now, the fermentation's been going on about 2 weeks. It's not stuck, but it's gone on the go slow. It's taken a week to get from 10.17 to 10.15. I'm expecting it to get lower than that. So I've left it a bit. I've turned the temperature up 1 by 1 degree, and it is still bubbling. But I think what I'm going to do is practice an ancient Yorkshire square technique called rousing the yeast. So traditionally, Yorkshire square, you would to stop the yeast getting lazy, you would pump it out from the bottom of the square and literally squirt it on top of the krausen in order to rouse the yeast. I probably should have done it a bit earlier than the end stages of 10:15. So, but I still think it will be okay, and I think it will get it going. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm simply going to take it from the very bottom, try and get the yeast trub out, if you like, and I'm going to just pour it in with a jug. I've got a sanitised jug here. Pour it in the top and do a few jugs full, and hopefully that will be just enough to get it to finish its fermentation at a bit more of a pace. So I'm just going to loosen that off. A bit of squirt or take it off. It's not under pressure, so no problem. Squirt. Smells nice. Give this a good sanitation. Good squirt with a sanitizer. That first one's quite yeasty. The other thing I could have done, of course, is do open fermentation or leave the lid off for a bit. But this is a bit of a nod to tradition, so right, that's half a dozen jugfuls, so I think I can seal it up now. Right, the Ward's Bitter is, after rousing, it's come alive a little bit. Have a look at that. So it's not doing a great lot, but it is definitely still fermenting, judging by that. So we'll check the gravity perhaps in the morning and see if the rousing's done the trick and helped it to just finish off. Right, in this tank here we've got the Ward's Bitter, and it's actually 3 weeks it's been on the tank. It's been a bit sluggish, attenuating those last few points. Perhaps starting my yeast from the little slant. Perhaps I didn't work it up enough for my starters. So perhaps next time I'll do the second step up sooner before the brew day. But anyway, it's finally struggled its way down to about 10, 12, so it's still really should go further, but it just seems to be doing nothing now. And pour a bit off. As you can see, it's really trying to clear, and it certainly looks the right colour from what I can remember. And smell wise, it's got a smell the hop and the malt, a sort of carameliness as well. And yeah, very much English hoppiness, balanced bitterness. I think it's going to be quite good. Now, for putting this beer into casks, obviously you want to pull it through the hand pull. Yorkshire Bitter, it's just built for a sparkler. But on the research that I've done, I've come across some mysterious phrases like Demerara dry hop and things like that, special secondary fermentation and things like that. This might be just mysterious language used by brewers 20 years ago, or it could be something to it. So because it is fully flat now because it's been in the tank for 3 weeks, I'm going to actually prime the casks, and I'm going to use Demerara sugar, which will keep the caramelliness alive and going, and add a bit of flavour. It's sort of got that molasses type smell to it. So I've got some hot water in here. So I've got 300 grams of sugar in my total batch, which works out at about 50 grams for a 20-litre keg. Just putting it in some hot water to sanitize. What I'm going to do is dissolve the sugar, put 50 grams in each 20-litre or 100 grams into the big ones. But also I want to dry hop this beer with some whole leaf fuggles, and that is 5 grams. So I'm going to put 5 grams of fuggle whole leaf straight in the cask and in the 20-litre, and double that in the 40-litre. And you can just chuck them in loose, because your tap, your cask scale tap has these perforations or holes in them to specifically filter for hops. And at this end, you put a hop filter, what's called a hop filter, on there when you connect your pipes. So you can let them roam loose in the cask. So that's perhaps why I don't need many. And 5 grams will just give us a bit of taste. It's not on the same scale as your modern West Coast IPAs and so on, where you start talking how many grams per litre. We've got 5 grams in 20 litres, so that's a quarter of a gram per litre. So it's a very, very modest dry hop, but it will add a bit of woodiness and a little bit of aromatic hoppiness to the beer. And the fact that it stays in the cask forever until we drink it does mean that it continues to add flavour. So I'm going to put these. I am guessing about the dry hop, by the way. Did Wards have a dry hop or not? I don't know. Somebody who worked at the brewery, maybe you could tell me if you used to chuck a handful of hops in when you were casking or not. A lot of breweries that used to do it for preservative reasons in the 70s and 80s stopped around that time, when they didn't need to be quite so careful, perhaps when the introduction of more stainless barrels and casks and things like that, perhaps. So it could be that they didn't dry hop. So what I'll do is I'll do at least 1 barrel without a dry hop, so we can make a comparison test. But in my experience, any dry hop like this in a cask improves the beer. It's never overwhelms it because it's so modest, and it always just adds something. So I'll only just leave it out of 1 just as a taste comparison. as to what the sugar is going to give us. Is it going to add flavour to the beer? It's fairly modest amounts. It has got some molasses type flavour. Don't think that'll do us any harm. I think if anything, it will enhance the hopefully those kind of caramelly flavours in the beer. So very interested to see how this turns out, and I will put some Browsol in as well, although as you saw, it's pretty clear already. Obviously it's not clear enough, but I mean it's well on the way. Super. So I'll get cracking with that, and the next one, the Ward's Bitter.
Now that is delightful.
Handcrafted on the premises, of course.
Special, isn't it?
That's all there is.
I can see why you've got fond memories of that.
I think of it, it's just not quite right yet, but I need to keep practicing.
See,
which means you'll have to keep drinking it.
Drink your mistakes. You have me at a disadvantage because I've not had the real Ward's Bitter. But again, lovely beer.
So it's a similar project to Boddington's in that it's all but disappeared. Big brewery sort of stuff shut it down.
Righting wrongs from Wheatlow.
Exactly. Yeah, resurrecting the froth.
That's it. Resurrecting the froth.
Are you having a pretzel or are you trying to give them up?
No, I have had a pretzel. It's certainly awoken the taste buds. And they're very drying, aren't they?
Well, yes, I mean, it's a dry run really, so anything that can just increase the thirst.
I feel this is another lever for you, Richard, from lighting music. Now we've got drying foods on top.
Yeah, now we have salty sausage to increase thirst.
That's fabulous. Lottie introduced me to these the other day, and I've been a little bit behind the curve on them. They're really good. Good beer snacks.
Anyway, cheers and thank you for putting up with all my beers.
It's a heavy toll.
Got 4 more beers just to quickly taste. This is a recreation of an extinct beer from Sheffield called Ward's Bitter. Fond memories from when Ros was doing a nursing training in Sheffield, and it's a 4% Yorkshire Bitter basically. With a dry hop in the cask, which is perhaps what's giving it a bit of a spiky bit.
Aromatic. Yeah.
Fuggles, I think I put in the cask, but there's Progress and Fuggles in the aroma hops.
It's tasty.
I really wanted to get it. The beer used to be quite sulphury, like the Burton Snatch, and I used a yeast from a slope from Brew Labs, Yorkshire yeast that apparently might be the one, and it said it got sulphuriness, but I got no sulphuriness.
No.
I don't quite know how you can increase sulphur, because most people are normally trying to get rid of it, aren't they? Like in lagers and stuff. And I've been trying to increase sulphur on various beers, Bass of course, and now this one. And we've got a ruck of gypsum and stuff in the water. It's a massive Burton water profile for this and the Bass. And I'm just never producing any sulphur.
No.
So it's iteration number 1. I think it's a nice beer, but it doesn't really taste how I remember Wards. This is right, Roz. This is the Wards Bitter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What first impression? Colour?
Red.
How you remember it?
Yeah, pretty much. Got a nice creamy head. I remember that.
Yeah. Now, the thing with the Wards Bitter that we used to drink in Sheffield in copious quantities, doing our civic duty to try and stop it going out of date, is that it always had a sulphury smell.
Yeah.
I've tried to get a sulphury smell by getting a yeast that says it gives off sulphur, and also by having lots of sulphates in the water profile, but to be honest, I can't get any sulphur.
It's not like a pedigree, is it?
No, it's not got the Burton Snatch or the Wards, whatever they called it.
It's nice and smooth, how I remember it. A bit sweet, I would say.
I think it's possibly a bit more hoppy than it used to be. It's a bit more easy drinking, wasn't it?
I remember drinking this in the Rutland Arms in Sheffield. Beautiful old pub, still going now. Went there recently, didn't we?
Yeah, it's a great pub, lots of different beers. But in those days, a pint of Wards when it was on full, absolutely delicious. I think this is a good attempt. I think it's a nice beer in itself, but I don't think we've quite nailed the Wards. It's hard to remember what a beer was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, of course. But it is quite nostalgic. It feels like an old-time beer, I would say.
25 years, not 20.
We're that old now.
Yeah, with the batteries running down, like. But yeah, it's nice to have a go at it, but I think just need to try again. And this reminds me of when I tried Bass, and it was sort of a bit too hoppy.
Yeah.
And I think we need to probably tone down the late hop. And this is also dry hop, by the way. I've done one dry hopped and one not dry hopped. This is the dry hop one. It's possibly even more hoppy.
I think it's a good attempt, though. And,
It's a nice beer. But
just bring back memories.
we need to try again, get it going a bit.
Cheers, then.
Cheers. Good health. Here's to Sheffield.
Yay.
Right, so here it is. The Wards Bitter. And absolutely delighted with the clarity and the colour and so on of this beer. Nice creamy head that's been poured for a while and it's still nice and thick. Now it smells quite hoppy actually. Definitely the sort of earthy notes of the English hops. The body is pretty light and mouthfeel is just drinkable. I think it's an absolutely delicious beer. It's smooth, it's creamy from the head. The hopping in it is possibly because of the dry hop in this one. It's probably it's very hard to remember a beer from 20 years ago, isn't it? You might even say it was impossible. But the hopping to me seems like it might be just a touch too heavy. Not for my taste, I like it, but just to try and remember how Wards Bitter was. Certainly a good session beer. Well, easily sink a few pints of that. Lacing sticking nicely to the side of the glass. So I think overall I'm really pleased with this beer. What disappoints me is that I haven't been able to get the sulphuriness in the beer, the Burton Snatch, if you like, that this beer was famous for. And I'm not quite sure how you do that. I've picked a yeast that the descriptors say gives off sulphury notes or enhances sulphuriness. I've got loads of sulfates in the water profile. must be something else that's needed. Do we need to stress the yeast? Do we need to ferment it hot or cold, perhaps? Do we need open fermentation? I'm not quite sure what the secret is. Now, if you know what the secret is to getting this sulphury note that you might expect from a beer like this, or pedigree, or even Bass back in the day, then let me know, because I want to try and recreate that. I think brewers, yeast manufacturers and so on have all been trying to get this out of beer because it's perhaps been seen as a fault, particularly if people describe it as a rotten egg smell or what have you. But a lot of drinkers, although some drinkers didn't like that, a lot of drinkers revered the quality of the Burton Snatch in beers like Pedigree, Bass and Wards. And it would just be really interesting to try and recreate that. So let me know in the comments if you've got any tips for me about how to get the Burton Snatch back in our ale, because that would just be a really interesting thing to do. And if we could perhaps ease back on the hopping on this a little bit, possibly just on the aroma side, and increase that sulphuriness, I think we might be getting a bit more near to what we're aiming for here. So if you remember Ward's Bitter as well, let me know in the comments. I think it's been a really interesting experiment, and I fully intend to do another iteration of this to try and get nearer to the original thing. And if you can remember exactly what it tastes like, let me know as well in the comments, because it's a very hard thing to do from 25 years ago actually, since I've had it. So I think it's been another great brewing experiment, resurrecting beers that are hard to find or extinct or forgotten about or not available or what have you. And there'll be more of those to come on the channel. So thanks for your support, and I'll just say goodbye with a frothing ale. Cheers.